Hey, welcome to another 3D zip guy assembly video. Today I'll take you through in detail how this new action figure is put together using zip ties. You'll also see some of the improvements that I've implemented to make this figure more suitable for various filament material combinations, including resin 3D printing. It'll all make sense as we move along. Now, this figure is printed at its default 100% size, roughly 1/12 scale, printed at 0.08 to 0.1 millimeter layer height using Sunlu PLA Plus, which also happens to be our sponsor, and this one's going to need some painting. We have a lot to cover, so let's get on with it. Start by inserting a 4mm zip tie into the hole at the bottom of the heel, feeding it forward through the tunnel. Guide the zip tie under the toe bridge, then loop it back around toward the heel, and insert the tip into the locking head. Use a pair of pliers or a stick to hold the head in place while you pull the zip tie tight. Once secured, trim off the excess. Next, attach the ankle donut joint with another zip tie through the heel. Loop through the donut, then back to the heel. Lock it and pull snug. This joint carries the figure's weight, so make it firm. Trim the excess and make sure nothing is sticking out. Now move up to the shin. Align the upper and lower parts and make sure the holes are clear before gluing. Let's connect the knee. Insert a zip tie through the back of the knee, through the upper shin, then loop into the boot, back out to the upper shin and lock it. Shove the zip tie head into the upper shin while pinning it down with the knee. While holding the parts together, gently pull the zip tie and tighten it really hard. Cut off the excess zip tie. Connect the foot to the lower leg by pressing the peg firmly into the ankle hole. For the thigh connection, pass a zip tie from the thigh to the knee's upper bridge and back. Lock the zip tie and push it inside the thigh. Pin it down with a tool to keep it steady while you tighten it. Trim the excess as close to the head as possible. Repeat these steps for both legs. Next up, the hips. Insert the back hip piece onto the hip peg. Then cover it with the front hip cover. At this point, you can already pop the hip assembly into the thigh. However, here's a bonus tip. I like to wrap a small piece of tape around the hip joint to make the fit tighter. In general, filaments tend to shrink slightly as they cool down. The amount of shrinkage can vary not only by filament type, but also by color, even within the same brand or material. Let's set those aside for now and skip ahead to the arms. To connect the shoulder to the upper arm, insert a 3mm zip tie under the lower bridge of the shoulder cavity, then guide it out through the bottom hole and into one of the slots inside the upper arm. Insert the zip tie around the upper bridge of the elbow, then feed it into the upper arm and back out through the shoulder. Lock it. Push the head down with a tool while gently tightening the zip tie. Make sure the orientation is correct. Cut off the excess as close as possible to the head. At the elbow, insert the peg with the nub facing inward. Insert a zip tie from the front of the elbow, wrapping it around the elbow peg. As the tail exits from the bottom, position the head between the peg walls of the elbow. Lock the zip tie and tighten it firmly. Make sure the head is centered, then trim off the excess tail. Zip tie through the forearm, loop through the hand donut, then feed it back into the forearm. Lock the zip tie, then bring the connected parts snugly together. Using a tool, press the zip tie head firmly into the recess inside the forearm, while gently tightening the loop. Once secured, trim off the excess tail as close to the head as possible. Now we can attach the forearm to the elbow peg. Snap the shoulder clip onto the cylindrical bridge. Repeat for both arms. Take the pelvis block and insert a big zip tie into the rectangular cavity and out the lower slot. Bend the zip tie upwards and insert the tail into the slot right above it. Push the zip tie head but not all the way in. The hole of the zip tie head should be visible when viewed from above. Be careful not to pull the zip tie to avoid misaligning the holes. Insert the pelvis block into the pelvis frame. Insert a zip tie on both sides, starting from the slots above, closest to the pelvis block. Loop back up and lock them, but do not tighten. Leave a lot of space. enough to fit 2 fingers inside the zip tie loop. Now, just like we did with the hips earlier, line the bottom of the pelvis block and frame with tape to keep the joint nice and tight. This is totally optional, by the way. I recommend doing this if you're printing in PLA or resin that tends to shrink a lot. Use whatever you have on hand. Scotch or electrical tape usually works best. Feel free to experiment. All right, moving on. Insert the hip ratchet joints into the mid-channel of the pelvis and sandwich everything in place with the pelvis block. Tighten all sides and trim the excess. Insert the outer pelvis over the whole pelvic assembly. Just making sure the slot's clear for the zip tie to go through later. Yep, we're still good. Now comes the new feature. The chest socket is now a completely separate assembly. This allows you to print the joint using a tougher material. For example, you can print the chest in regular resin and the inner section in PETG filament. This way, you have full control over the strength of the joints without compromising the outer surface quality. The assembly is very similar to the old version. Just remember to keep it tight and trim the excess neatly. The next step is to simply position the socket inside the chest cavity, with the concave side facing downward. The rest is assembled the same way as before. Run a zip tie through the torso donut, the chest socket, and out through the collar of the chest. Then pass it into the neck and around the neck peg donut, bringing it back out through the chest socket. Lock the zip tie and tighten it securely. Test the stiffness of the joint. This point will bear a lot of weight, so make sure the zip ties are fully tightened before trimming them off. Let's bring the torso assemblies together. The torso core goes in first, followed by the midsection. The zip tie goes in and around the torso donut ball, back through the torso core and into the pelvis block. It should come out through the rear exit. Tighten it as hard as you can while shifting the waist around. Now we can attach the arms. Place the shoulder spacers and pop the arms into the chest sockets. And now the head. Wait, I almost forgot. We need to trim this. Thank you so much for watching up to this point. If you want to see how articulated this figure is as he battles it out with 2 other figures, or if you'd like to see how I made these spider bots using a CNC laser cutter, click these videos right here.